Hello, welcome to the Massive Wagons podcast.
I'm Baz.
I'm Adam.
Welcome to the Massive Wagons podcast.
Today, I'm going to talk about, and I we like to keep things positive on this podcast.
Positive all the time.
But I'm going to talk about a particularly bad gigging experience I had.
Yeah.
Yeah, so like I said, I'm not saying this just for Ramon. You know, there will be morals.
Who's he? Ramon. Not just saying this for Ramon.
For Ramon.
Who's Ramon?
Oh, for Ramon. Yeah. Ramon, you know who you are, Ramon.
He's out there.
No, I'm not just having a whinge. Hopefully, there's going to be a takeaway for this, for like a takeaway in terms of morals, not a pizza or anything like that. Before you make that joke, it's going to be about gear and equipment, and there's a time and a place for trying new things and elements of preparation and all this kind of stuff. So but anyway, before I go on, do any gigs over the years stick out in your mind as being sort of disastrous from a technical kind of point of view?
Technical. I mean, I don't really have any. I don't really have much to deal with, do I? Really, technical wise. I mean, I have a microphone. I mean. And that's all really. Occasionally, the bad time. Well, we had a gig up in Scotland, didn't we? The biggest thing for me is the fligging in ears. Is when they get interference or they get because you got so many signals and stuff. I don't understand it, so I don't know why. But you got like this all the signals. They got the in-ear monitors and you got your wireless microphone and you got your guitar fucking packs and then You know, and then I remember that gig we did in Scotland. What was the bike one? The Aviemore.
Oh yeah.
I think because we'd left our. I normally have a main mic and then I have a spare mic. Now, normally 9 times out of 10, the spare mic is a wired mic, isn't it? Mm-hmm. But I think on this occasion we had my other wireless as the spare. But if you leave it switched on, it interferes with your flipping in ears. I remember us barreling on stage, and all of a sudden in your ears, every time I opened my mouth, it was going. In my
Seal
ears.
noises. Yeah.
Well, then you're in the middle of a song, aren't you? So then you go into then it stops, and you think, oh, it's cleared up, and then it'll start again, and then you just get raged, don't you? And I remember pulling my ears out and then doing the whole set with no monitors because it was easier than having that horrible noise in my ears.
It's so distracting.
It's fucking horrible.
It is,
man.
yeah.
You can't stop a gig halfway through and just that's the issue, isn't it? You can't stop a gig half the time,
especially when it happens right at the beginning, and you've generally been waiting around all day. For this moment, you know, it's like now it's time to here we go. We get to fight,
and it goes wrong,
and it goes wrong, and all you can think is like, for fuck's sake.
To be honest, the biggest one was Download.
Yeah, that was
when we played the second stage at Download. Something that I remember going on with my in-ears in. At that time, we have them on stage now, but at the time we never had guitar cabs on stage, did we? They were off stage, and everything went through your in-ears. We had everything through our in-ears on stage. So I remember going on stage, and then I started singing. I don't know what I fired into it. I can't remember back to the stack or something. Fired into it, and I've got guitars, I've got music in my ears, but I've got no voice. So anyway, I'm trying to faff about, and there's like however many thousands of people are watching. This is a big moment. I pulled my in-ears out, so then I had to listen to because we had no monitors. I had to listen to the front of house, so they're in front of where you're stood. So you're just kind of hearing. You stood behind the speakers. I'm just listening to my voice.
But it was the same for everyone.
And muscle memory. But what I'm going to say is, I thought I had it bad. Then we came off stage, and I was like, "What happened to my in-ears? It went wrong." And you lot, not only did you not have your flipping in-ears working, you didn't have any cabs on stage at all. So you're all just playing like acoustic electric guitars.
No monitoring whatsoever.
None. I can only imagine what Bowser must have fucking. Yeah. It's not like he stood even further back than you, so he can't hear himself.
The only thing with the bass is you feel the bass, like when you got the big subs going and things like that. You can kind of feel that. To be honest, I forgot about that. I mean, as a collective kind of sort of disaster and technical failure, that was probably the biggest issue. Yeah.
But you've just got to keep smiling, keep singing, and keep playing. And nobody knew, did they?
No.
I've not met anybody that said we noticed something went wrong. I think that's where your years of years of playing and keeping a situation under control comes in.
Just smile and just doing the smile and play on, and know that right, this is going to be difficult, but they don't know or care, the people watching, and there was probably 10,000 people watching that. And
the thing that's the most disappointing about that situation, for me, is, and it's a little bit selfish, I suppose, but it suddenly calls from being this really, really enjoyable situation you've been looking forward to for months and months and months to we've got to get through this.
Yeah.
It's like, fuck, I didn't want it to be like this. But
and I think, I can't remember it, our sound person at the time did explain what had happened to that, but everything was fine till literally, I think, like the intro tape was playing.
The signal between someone on his...
I think a line had been like run over or something with a trolley, and it had just basically everything went down, and then they had to switch it super quick so that he could actually get sound out of the front. But then in doing that, it bypassed the system that we needed that sent our mix to us. So it was like, well, either that or nothing at all. So it's just got to be done, and then we just go on, and it's like, oh, okay, it's like that. But, but yeah, that is where experience comes into it, and that was a couple of years ago. So by this point, we're kind of sort of somewhat seasoned, I guess.
It is what it is, isn't it? You've just got to give everyone a good show. That is the ultimate goal. It doesn't matter what you're going through on stage. It's a negative thing if you let it affect your show or it goes wrong. That's worse than...
Oh, you can't throw a paddy or a sulk.
No, you can't. You've just got to get through it.
Yeah, and and as long as you're making a noise, and as long as the noise is coming out for the people out the front, then you can just forget about it and cry yourself to sleep later on in your bunk or whatever. But
talk about it 2 years later on podcast.
Yeah,
like it happened last week.
This would be good to talk on a podcast down the line. Yeah. No, but I mean the situation I'm going to talk about was going back, 10 years, probably even a little more. No, it'd have been about 10 years ago. And this was when I was still finding my feet with equipment and learning how to, prepare your gear for gigs properly. And as a guitarist, it's so easy to go down the rabbit hole, so to speak, of gear accumulation and just thinking, I'll just take this pedal, and I'll just take that pedal, and I'll have that wireless unit, and I'll have this extra guitar for that song, and blah blah blah. I'll have 2 amps, stereo rigs, all kinds of stuff, and it's really, really hard to keep yourself in check. And this was sort of like the pinnacle of when I hadn't learned that yet, and I was about to take it too far. So I had like a 2 amp setup, and I'm not going to mention the gig where it was or anything, or the event or anything, because I don't want it to reflect badly on that. Because it wasn't about that; it was about me. There were a few things to do with that as well, but it was mainly me. But I think it was like early on in the year, and I don't think we'd played for months.
No.
Do you know the one I'm talking about?
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about.
So I think it was like like February. It was like a February gig, and I don't think we played since December or November, which was a long time for us back then. And so we hadn't rehearsed, probably, knowing us. At the time we probably hadn't rehearsed properly.
Not.
I probably hadn't. Well, I definitely hadn't checked all the gear. And basically, I'd got this big flight case, and I'd put my amp head in it.
Because I remember oddly, that gig at that time of year, we'd tried to take a conscientious approach to sorting gear out. Yeah. Ironically, and that was like, we need to get our shit together, because this gig we're going to, that one you're talking about, was synonymous for us, because we played it before, with umpteen bands on the day, and gear absolutely everywhere. One tiny little room about the size of this office for about 10 bands to put, and everything's in black cases, and we lost stuff over the years, and we're like, we need to fucking sort this out. So I remember we had actually made, which is what made it even worse, because I think we had actually really tried to be the professional band, because we were headlining, weren't we?
Yeah, we were. Yeah, no, that's a good point. Yeah, I forgot that that we were it was a conscious effort to do this. It makes me feel a little bit better. But anyway, I put all this stuff in a flight case, and the big problem was I hadn't checked any of it. I put all this stuff in a flight case with power conditioners and like a little rack, so all my pedals were kind of like the ones that I didn't need to were sort of immediately be accessible were all plugged in and routed in at the back. So the theory is that I put my amp down in this massive flight case, plug a couple of things in, and away we go. You know, I've got my pedals all hooked up. Because we knew that, like, when you've got these sort of things, and the same is true now, when you've got barely any time to sound check or line check, it needs to be idiot proof, and it needs to be simple, and it needs to be like a stagehand who's never seen or heard you before knows to just where to plug things. But I hadn't. The big problem was I just hadn't tested any of it. So we come on and we're probably already 5 or 10 minutes running over the time schedule. Trying to line check, you know, there's just nothing happening. Go on the stage. Oh, suddenly it's all working. Okay, don't ask questions. It's fine. And then, okay, well, the intro tape's playing. I'm stood there at the side of the stage. There's just no sound. You know, there's nothing happening. That horrible feeling of like it's too fucking late now. You know, I'm gonna have to go on and before I've played a note, start troubleshooting my bloody gear. And that's just the lamest thing ever. And at that point, you just wish, you don't even care what you sound like, you just want to make a noise. It's like, I could be plugged into the shittest amp, using the shittest guitar, just one cable from here to there, but at least it's going to make a noise. You know, at that point, you're not even bothered about all your fancy amps and pedals and all that kind of stuff. It's like, oh, I just want to make a noise. Now, there's a big lesson in that, I think. Anyway, there was all kinds of problems going on. I had like ground loops, which because I'd made these like cables myself, hadn't tested them, and it was like a multi-core cable, shielded multi-core cable, and so basically like you want to get the signal from the back of the stage to the front of the stage to your pedal board, and then back again, and that's either going to mean like multiple jack leads, you know, being run to the front and the back. That can quickly become a mess and hard to deal with. So I got a new, I got this multi-core cable, wired all the jacks on myself, and you've got one cable that's got like a bunch of, you know, cables in basically. Hadn't really tested it, and it was just noisy as shit. It was just like just the intrinsic kind of noise that was generated because it's you know, you need a really good type of cable if you're going to do that sort of thing. But again, in my ignorance, hadn't tested it, hadn't thought of any of that. I'm going straight into a gig doing this. So even when I did get it to make a noise, it was this horrible kind of like interference.
Is that better than no noise?
Well, actually, no, that's not better than no noise at all. But, you know, there was that. There was a bunch of pedals that I hadn't set up right. And as it actually turned out, that they'd had problems on that festival with the power as well. So things have been going like wrong all day. So there was a combination of things, but at that point you don't know what's going wrong, and you end up just plugging your guitar straight into your amp head. Yeah, and
it was I remember it being it was a chaotic festival. It was a busy festival. There was a lot of people there, and it was in that way it was good, but it was one of them. The stage was not very big. You know, it's one of them where you're wading through the crowd to get to the stage, and there's one toilet-sized fucking room behind the stage. Tons of stuff everywhere on the stage, and it's just like it's stressful, isn't it?
Yeah, it's
a stressful environment.
It is stressful, and it all goes into that feeling when you are trying to level up and you are trying to put on a bit of a more of a professional front. Yeah, you end up just shooting yourself in the foot in the way in sometimes you try to simplify things, and ironically you end up making them harder and more complicated.
But these are things that teach you value. Like you said, they do teach you valuable lessons. It's kind of shit you have to go through, isn't it? Yeah. You know, and then you sort of trim away what you don't need, and then just become a bit more conscientious with it. I suppose, don't you?
It's not particularly. One of the big lessons I learned was it's great having everything like dead sort of in its one container, all wired up, all good and ready to go. You know, bang! It's there. It's all good. You're not messing around with tons of cables and whatever. The problem with that though is if something goes wrong, it then becomes really hard to troubleshoot because everything's like wired in and everything's like inaccessible because everything's cable tied down. Routed so neatly to the point where all the cables are
can't change
like,
anything.
Yeah, you can't change anything right there and then, not without getting your bloody snips out and cutting.
Nobody wants to see that from a headline band, do they?
No, getting on your tool belt,
Getting your wire side cutters out.
Yeah, things like that. So it might look sexy and it might look great and
organised
on your Premier guitar rig rundown. That's never going to happen.
Which is all right, I suppose, if you're in a massive band and you've got several techs with you and several heads, and
that's when it's different. And when you've had pre-production days, everything's right now. It's all working. This is great. This is perfect. Then that's when you can make it nice and tidy, and you can make it nice and efficient. But just doing it at home in your bedroom or whatever, and then going and then getting to a gig and plugging it in and nothing's working, you go, shit, right, well, that was a waste of time, wasn't it? And also really hard to get to the bottom of.
And it hurts even more because it's come from a good place, hasn't it? Because you think, right, I'm sorting my life out.
I know. I was so gutted, honestly. I just remember being absolutely crushed and feeling like a right tit as well, having to walk on, during the intro tape and starting unplugging stuff, with your guitar on, and it's just
we're all just sort of studying like this.
This is awkward. Intro tape finishes and it's silence. It's not working. Sorry.
It's just panic on stage, isn't it? And you know what? I seem to remember. It's funny because it wasn't actually as long as you think, but it feels like forever.
It feels like hours.
It must have been a few minutes, probably. Yeah. Ripping the, you just sort of get all that motion, don't you? It's like cables
flying everywhere,
fucking flying out, heads being ragged off, and then more heads being put on, and like this, and then all of a sudden there's a noise, and everyone goes, "Way!"
Yeah.
But that's just the start of it, because then you're not happy. You're still not happy. They might think you've sorted it because there's a noise, but then you don't know what's working, do you? Everything's been pulled out. You don't know what your lead sounds like, or your fucking...
like you said, at that point, you're just happy to be making noise again, and then you just have to, right, fine, it's not the noise you want to make, but
it is what it is.
The rest of it's down at your performance, isn't it? So, but yeah, so that was a big thing for me, and I feel like I had to have that experience to understand that. Well, it's not. There's a compromise. You can either have things so tight and buttoned down and neat and tidy, but then the compromise to that is, well, if something goes wrong, you're buggered there, really.
You're baggered.
And without crew and everything to sort of have your back, which we didn't at the time, it's really better to just have things, have you set up and understand it inside out. And have a few things handy, a spare cable, spare speaker lead, and make sure it's all there and it's on hand, and you can just change anything as and when.
Yeah.
And also go for the obvious things first. If it's not making a noise, check everything on your pedal board is like plugged in, and nothing's just been knocked, or you
left your tuner on.
Your tuner on, or even check your volume knob is up.
Check you haven't run out of petrol.
Yeah, it's just like it's common sense, really. But when you're flapping and you
touch wood, we haven't had any disasters for ages. I think the download one was probably the last one we had, really. Everything's been going pretty good lately, hasn't it? Really, everything's been pretty good. I mean, you say about gear and stuff. When you fly, it's a different situation altogether. When you fly into European festivals, isn't it? That's like. You're totally going into the unknown there, aren't you? You don't have... unless you're a massive band who are doing a festival run in a coach, in a bus, and you've got your trailer with all your gear in it, and you're doing like Machine Head at that Mystic Festival he's doing. They're doing like 20 festivals. It's almost like a tour, isn't it? So you've got all your gear with you. Whereas us, we're doing them sort of couple at one weekend, and then one a weekend after, and then we're flying home and going out again, aren't we? So you're paying for bags and... we don't have a bus, so you're taking one guitar each and a suitcase that's got a few pedals and cables in it, drum pedals. Yep. So you're hiring stuff from unknown sources, or you're borrowing stuff off festivals. We found at the weekend, we went to a festival and I had no mic stand because they had no mic stands I could use. which was an inconvenience, but you make it work. I
Well,
know it's a minor thing, but
they had no mic stands that were compatible with your
with my thing that held my mic.
head, yeah. And the ones the festival had, bless him. I mean, it's a big festival. This isn't a small festival at all. But these mic stands must have been 40 years old.
Oh yeah, you couldn't get the thing off the end. I wanted to unscrew the little nut off the end so I could put my mic top on it.
I think it'd been welded on, hadn't
He
it?
couldn't get. He was there with his Leatherman like, I don't understand why they won't come off. So I ended up with no mic stand. It was either like to make a decision: do I go with my radio mic with no mic stand, or do I have a mic stand and use the wired mic? I was like,
yeah. I mean, to be honest, that's a bit of a freak. That's never happened before.
Sounds like a stupid, pathetic decision to have to make, but you're like that at the last second. You're like, I don't know what to do.
Yeah,
you just want it to be a good show. That's all you've got in your head, innit? You think, what all the minor details you want when you're in there and you've got none of your own gear. You want everything on your side, don't you? You want every little advantage you can. What's going to make it is you play with hundreds of bands. How are we going to stand out? I don't want to be held back by anything.
No.
It's difficult, isn't it? And like you guys, you have to pick. You often get a list, don't you, of amps to pick from, or often you turn up and you're like, "What is that?
What's there?"
Well, we've got a Line 6 Spider, and
it's never been quite that bad, but there's been a few times when you've turned up and it, most 90% of the backline, they call it the backline, like so the drum kit, the guitar amps and cabinets and bass rig and all that kind of stuff. They generally have a few options available at most festivals. And, there's sort of, you could predictably assume there's going to be a Marshall something or other there, because they made so bloody many of them, a JCM 900's basically a sort of the most common one you're going to get because they made about 1 billion of them in the 90s. That's great, what you're working with, and
I suppose so. Yeah.
I have no problem with that at all. Me and Steve can deal with that. Sometimes you turn up and they'll generally have a clean option and an overdrive kind of chunky rhythm kind of option.
It's never the case. It's never the case, really, that it's something crappy. It's often not often the case. Sometimes the case that it's just not suitable. Isn't it?
Not right for you.
It's just not right for you, isn't it? It's an amazing for this sort of music. But you turn up wanting a bit of flipping volume and a bit of distortion or whatever you want. I don't know. And it's like, what have you got?
All right. Got the Blackmore angle.
Fuck me. Yeah. Although on occasions you turn up. Where did we turn up to that festival in Romania and they had a flipping plexi? Was it a plexi or something like that?
Yeah, I remember Steve using it.
And then a band used it and blew it up and then he couldn't use it anymore, could he?
There's another lesson. If you're going to use vintage gear, vintage, it's like 50, 60 years old, It's going to go wrong at some point.
Yeah.
So but
you turn up at these festivals in Europe and you do it's kind of a good challenge. It's a nice challenge sometimes when you come off stage and it's been a good gig and everything's gone right. It's like you feel like fucking hell, we bossed that. That was good, even though you don't have all your home comforts.
No,
no,
yeah, and it's sometimes liberating, I guess, when you've got no option but to strip your setup right down to the bare minimum. Guitar, tuner, amp.
You realise just what you can do.
Exactly.
With just that, don't you?
And nowadays, and what I'm talking about, when I was sort of explaining my situation about my little story, that was, I think, the height of the pedal kind of craze. I think about that time was when there's still big business now, but guitar pedals at the time were just it was such a big industry. Now I think it's gone a little, I think it's less about that, and people have cottoned on to the convenience of having one unit that has everything in, like your Kempers and your Quad Cortexes and you think things like that.
I think Stephen uses that, he uses it in this country, doesn't he? He has that thing with all that inbuilt.
Well, it's a switch of that, so it's basically like he's got all his pedals, and then he has this thing that you could press that button and it'll turn this one, that one, and that one on. And then you press that and it'll just turn that one on. So it's like, rather than having to press dance around, yeah.
Clever.
But yeah, and I actually see, I think the pedal board thing is kind of, in rock anyway, I think it's shrinking now because there was bloody hell, some bands that we used to play with in small very small clubs and very small stages.
Fucking hell.
Ridiculous.
We used to have a right old chuckle, didn't we?
Yeah.
Honest to flipping God. You see them like that way, aren't they?
Yeah,
You
big
know,
suitcase.
like 20 pedals. It's like, what are you going to do? What? I mean, I'm not a guitar player, but I can't possibly understand what difference all them pedals make.
And these are rock bands as well. These aren't.
What are you doing?
These aren't progressive. You know, they're not making like soundscapey kind of things.
These sounds don't. Nobody in the Dog and Partridge in Preston, not one of the 4 people watching cares what order you switch your fucking pedals on. Honestly, oh, you see that wrong? Doesn't quite sound right. It doesn't sound like the album. That 4 seconds of guitar part.
And I ask myself this now every time I get a new piece of gear, a new whatever is being introduced into the setup. It's like this is one more element to go wrong.
Yeah.
It's one more cable to break. It's one more power connection to think about.
It's another fucking 9-volt battery you need to buy.
Yeah.
Or whatever.
It is really like it's all about the simplicity and consistency now. You know, those are the big things for me.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
And reliability.
Yeah.
You know, those things
Stressing your brain, isn't it?
absolutely take a forefront where they never used to at all. It always used to be about, oh, wouldn't it be cool to throw this effect on for 10 seconds that no one's ever going to notice or care about. You know?
I can understand it. I mean, guitar players, it's a hobby, it's a passion, isn't it? And
Yeah.
it's like buying sweets and you go into a guitar shop and it's like, oh, look at these pedals, you know, and it's addictive, isn't it? I imagine.
Yeah.
You know, getting stuck into all that, something to spend your money on, but. It doesn't always work on the road. Or it's all right at home, innit? Or if you're doing a bit of something recording, but
God,
on the road, fuck me.
Over the years, though, I've had pedals break at gigs. I had a tuner go. Do you remember? We played somewhere and it's the last thing that you think is going to...
Especially one of them Boss jobs.
Yeah, Boss
Christ, they are indestructible, aren't they?
And we used it to keep our broken bin lid shut at our last unit.
We did, yeah.
For years.
So it didn't die. It had a purpose.
It changed. It just
changed its role.
Changed its job. But, you know, nothing is beyond the beyond breaking. Bloody guitars, you know, like...
Yeah.
We've had all kinds of things. I had a standing bass player, God bless him, for a show we did in London, the Underworld, with the Von Herzen brothers.
Stephen.
Song number 1, he's throwing his head, give me some shapes, and I don't know, he either stood on his jack lead and threw his guitar up, and it didn't put the guitar. Normally, you should put the guitar in at the angle, so like use the angle one, so you've got a bit of strain kind of relief there. But he put it in straight. Stood on the guitar lead, threw it up, and it snapped off. And the jack, plug, literally snapped off inside his guitar. Job's over at that point.
Thank you, good night.
Yeah, you've got no bass guitar.
You were amazing, London.
Until you could take the whole thing apart and fix that.
What happened?
You had to borrow a guitar. Borrowed a guitar from someone.
Fucking hellfire. And then stood at the back with his head down for the rest of the
Not moving.
Embarrassed myself there.
But, you know, things like that, that's like a crippling...
It is what it is.
It's not something you can work around, really.
Yeah, I fell off stage, and that was quite funny. That was something that happened to me. Stephen knocked me off stage one night, didn't he? Fell off the front of the stage.
Bangs and clashes.
Flipping it. Yeah, I once played the old thing in Preston, and I got my hair stuck in... we've got a minute and a half left. I got my hair stuck in Carl's headstock on his guitar. We had to stop the song halfway through, giving it all like... My hair went... and like settled on his tuning pegs and went... and then Carl went... and I went... and then we had to stop the song halfway through.
It out, didn't you?
You had to try and everyone's going... way.
Yank it out. The rest of the gig, he had a big bloody wig hanging off at the end of his guitar.
That was embarrassing. That was very embarrassing.
Yeah, things like that. But it's all live music, and you've got to take when things go wrong. You've got to keep your head together, and also smile through it. Shit goes wrong.
Make a joke of it. I mean, I rip the piss when it happens, but it's only to keep the crowd entertained. Like, make everyone point at the person who's fucked up on stage. But it just, if you can handle it, it's just a good way of making people laugh in it and passing their time. Yeah, because the last thing you want is to go quiet and go, oh no, job's knackered.
Yeah. Oh, talk amongst yourselves.
Yeah. Anyway.
If you're in a band, let us know if anything like that's happened to you over the years. Be interesting to hear about it. does happen.
Have you ever seen any other bands have disasters?
I've seen bands like when the guitars stop working, and
Yeah.
then generally before they do that the guitars stop working because it's just gone out of
They don't know, do they?
PA, and
Maybe,
they might think that the monitoring's a bit dodgy at the minute, and then you could see the penny drop, and then they're like, oh, how are they going to play this out? How's this going to happen?
I remember watching. I like Taking Dawn?
Oh, they got the leads tangled.
They got all the leads tangled up at Airborne, didn't they? And they ended up doing a massive guitar. One of the guitar players had to do a massive guitar solo while they were trying to untangle all this fucking shit.
I don't know how it went that bad.
No, they did a nightmare, didn't they? But they handled it well. Yeah, they handled it really well. But you could tell it must be. It's a stressful situation. It really is, especially when you're playing a big venue to a big crowd and you've been looking forward to this for months and months, and you're prepared and you're like, right, we're gonna fucking pick some fans up here. Then it goes hideously wrong.
Yeah, there's nothing to be done really.
No,
you just gotta
handle it.
Just got to handle it.
Just take your pants off.
Yeah.
Give them something else to look at.
If all goes wrong.
The old windmill. I don't know. Cause a scene.
If all goes wrong, yeah. No idea. Anyway, that's the podcast. Thanks for joining us. Like and subscribe. Do all that kind of crap.
Cacola.
Grab a ticket if you fancy coming and watch us live.
You want to come watch a real live disaster show?
Yeah. Who knows? It could happen.
It could happen. You could be there.
Come and watch us. We're playing at the end of November all around the UK. We're playing all over Europe in October. Tons of festivals through the summer. Just have a gander. See if it's out you fancy. It would be great to see y'all.